everybody, and a very warm welcome to today's webinar, How to Write Proposals That Win, with our presenter, Kira Feely. For those who don't know me, let me introduce myself. I'm Kate Bacon, Customer Relations and Events Manager based for IACC over in the UK. Now, for today's webinar, due to the participant numbers, we have put you all on mute on entry, just to avoid disturbances during the session. And can I encourage you all to use the chat box on the bottom of your screens for any questions? And we will also be opening the microphones during the webinar at certain times, so you can also ask your questions to Kira that way. For those unable to join us today, we will, of course, as always, be recording the session, and I will forward the recording together with all the slides to you all after the webinar. Now, it gives me great pleasure to hand over to your presenter today, Kira Feely. Thanks, Kira.
Hello, folks. How are you? How are you? It's wonderful to see you turn up. Congratulations. You are that extra percentage in the industry that take the time to invest in themselves and to try and always make themselves and their tools that little bit better, because there's always room for growth. And what I want to share with you, what's important to me, is that you get value from the hour that you are spending with us today. So ways to do that are to take notes, to engage, to ask questions, whether you want to put up your hand and come on the call, or whether you want to type in the chat box, whatever is comfortable. If you have a question, feel free to reach out straight away. Kate will be monitoring the chat box, and she will let me know what conversation is going on in there. What I really want to present to you is some winning strategies, because that's what I focus my time on in working with clients. I show them how to win and how to think like their clients. And what I want to share with you is how your client is thinking. Now, I used to work in hotel and venue sales. I have a 12-year hotel history. And from selling small family-run properties to quite large and up as far as 2,500 room nights. And I've worked in tough conditions because I opened a hotel 3 months after 9/11. Now, while I was very good in hotel sales and I always beat quota, what I didn't realize was how the client thinks and the mistakes that I was making as a salesperson and just thinking like a salesperson. So in the Steps to Win formula that I've researched in all the trainings that I do, I teach you what the client is thinking and how they buy, because I didn't realize how different they were thinking to me as a hotel salesperson until I became the client. And I spent 10 years in the agency side of things. And that enabled me to see the mistakes that hotels and venues are making and why business was being lost. So a key element and a key emotion that I want to teach you today is how to build trust, because it's the key between sale and no sale, how much or how little your next client or your next best client spends with you. And even though we are very much in an era of technology, and technology in our industry is changing at a very quick rate, it's still really important to build the relationship and to get to know your clients. It just takes earning that relationship and that opportunity to have a conversation that's a little bit harder to master, but it is of course possible. So what we can do is, in the background and from a distance, before we've earned the right to have that conversation with the client, we need to be building these emotions of trust and confidence, because a client makes a decision based on how you make them feel, whether it's from your sales tools and then graduate into conversations on whatever you write, whether it's Cvent or whatever format it is that you first get in front of the client. We must build these emotions of trust and confidence, because at the end of the day, you are dealing with their reputation and the brand of their company. And a problem that I see in the industry is that the client is not believing you. They're not believing the traditional sales and marketing messages that are out there in our industry, in hotels and venues. So, who are they believing? Well, they're believing their peers. They are believing other people who attend conferences, and of course they're believing complete and utter strangers on social media, which I know is hard to take and hard to accept when you are in such working for such a wonderful property and in such a wonderful and important position in the industry. But this is a cold hard fact. And I've written a book on this topic of how to win in the meetings industry. And Shauna Suckow is a great woman, lady in the industry. And she said this to me. I said, what are you hearing in your community? She has a community of about 3,000 planners, senior planners. And they said, look, we just don't believe the sales and marketing messages because they're all starting to sound the same. And commoditization has happened in our industry, and commoditization has happened in our proposals. But you can take back control, and you can stand out, sound different, and I'll show you some techniques in that. Creating more of an authentic message, a believable message, is really, really important. And we're going to look at some ways to do that. We have a little competition today for whoever is the most interactive, asking great questions, engaging in the webinar. I'll send you out a copy of my book, okay? So a great mentor of mine is Andy Bounds, that I've learned a lot through sales from, and I've collaborated with him in the chapter that I wrote in my book on how to write proposals, and in the module, the online module that I teach. And it's a very simple technique. First of all, we have to understand what's most important to the client. He calls them the afters. Then we need to build certainty. You have to prove that you can deliver it, and C, you got to offer some choice, 2 to 3 options as to how they can accept your proposal price options. Because at the end of the day, the planners, they really don't care about your business. They care about their problems. So we must be able to address these and show that you understand them in the all-important proposal. It's not about how you want to sell. And please make sure and tell, GMs and your directors this. It's not about how you want to sell. It's about how the planner wants to buy. And even if you work in a very busy market and one that's in demand, this is the way that we must be training ourselves. This is the way that we must be focusing our mindset. And this definitely is the way that we must be training our sales team and those coming into the industry, because the market is changing. And we want to make sure that we are ahead of the game and prepared for whatever is coming down the line. So it's about focusing in on what's most important to the client. Now, I encourage you today to take notes, to write whatever is coming up for you down on a piece of paper. And I encourage you to take notes, because there's a link between your hand and your brain. And it helps you to remember what we're talking about, to recall it when you need it. And of course, by definition, then to take action. We want you to take action, do something different as a result of the work that we're doing here today. So this is the Steps to Win formula that I have created. And it, I've distilled it down. It looks quite simple here. It's seven simple steps. But what I've realized is it takes quite a while to get to simple. And it took 3 years of me writing down my ideas and really just trying to filter and make it, you know, easy to digest. And this is the result. So number 3 is what we're focusing on today. And in my online programs, I spend most of my time in steps 1, 2, and 3, because that's where 80% of the leads are lost. And sometimes even before the client has read your proposal, you've lost the business because of some of the tools that have been developed, or how, you know, the messaging that they were receiving from your marketing and from reading online about you, your descriptions in the event or your descriptions on your website. But today we're focused on the proposal and what can we do at this all important step. So this is how I felt in my first job with IHG in San Francisco. And yes, it was in the 90s, and it was when we had to fax all the proposals, and I had to print them out and fax them. Now, I worked for 2 very busy sales managers. We worked the corporate market and the government and Smurf and association market. And I used to have to generate all of their proposals, sometimes as much as 10 a day. And I literally was stuck in this rut of churning out proposals. And I was just changing dates and names and the space requirements and the rates, and sending off the proposal. My desk ended up not quite this bad, but underneath it was more like this, because I hate filing, and I still do, and I strive to have a paperless office. But you know, the pile just kept on going up and up. But you know, now that I know what I know, I never asked an important question to the sales managers, and that was, what do I need to put in this proposal that's going to help it to be a winning one? And if I had asked that question more often, I would have had to send less proposals, right? And had less filing to do at the end of the week. So, you know, does anybody feel like this? You know, usually when I show this photo, people go, yes, I feel like that at times. And it happens. It definitely happens in our industry. Technology has made it that in a lot of markets, there is no shortage of leads. There's too many leads, right? And so it's really about being able to free up yourself. And I know we have a lot of directors and general managers on the call today, freeing up your team to be able to work in what I call the profit zone, and working on spending your time, spending your energy on writing proposals for those leads that are the right fit for your property. So tell me, what are your frustrations with proposals right now? What would you love to change about maybe the proposal process in our industry? What really bothers you, and what's going on for you when it comes to proposals? Okay. I'll give people a minute there. Okay. So just to let you know, guys, when you're in the chat room, you can choose to write it to everyone, or you can choose to write it privately to myself and Kate. So I can read these now, Kate, actually.
Oh, great. Okay.
So Lauren is saying, yes, clients not returning your call or your email. Really, really annoying, when they probably insisted that you needed to send them the proposal within a day or 2 hours or 4 hours, right? So yes, so we're hearing another frustration here, that systems aren't interfaced, and there's multiple platforms that you have to work through. So you might have to, you have to put it into your system, which might generate a proposal, but then you have to do it through the client's systems also, or maybe Cvent and then Starsight and then maybe meetings bookers, so absolutely, I hear that. So you could spend a lot of time working on the same one, right? Or, you know, you could receive the same lead from 3 or 4 agents, right? And then you have to do it 3 or 4 times in their different formats. And that's, of course, really, really frustrating. Brian says being notified when the client opens a proposal. Okay to use read notification on the email. So is that a question to me? To use read notification on the email. I personally don't use that. It can be handy, but I have too many emails already. So I just don't want to be generating more emails in my inbox. What we want to do, I suppose, is really make sure that the team are in a position that they know that they have put together a really great proposal and that they're building a strong relationship with the client. The client wants to email them back, that the client wants to engage with them, that the client wants to call them back, okay? Because there's too many average proposals been sent. There's not enough conversations being had in this industry, and there's not enough of the right kind of relationships been built also, and that is leading to people being frustrated because they're ignored, they're not hearing back from proposals, all of that kind of thing, okay? So great, thank you. I hope you feel better now after letting out that frustration, right? You're not alone. Plenty of people feel like that. And Heather would be one. Heather, she'll say herself, Kira, I've worked in the industry for 25 years. What can you teach me? You know, before she came on my program. And she told me a story that she was chasing the same corporate client for 3 years. Each year been asked to fill out the RFP, to, you know, to bid on the client's meetings business for the year, and each year not winning it. To changing her approach, changing the conversation that she had with the client, and making a few key changes in her proposal, and then all of a sudden she won the client's business. She won 75% of the event, her event business for this year. The only reason she didn't win 100% was because she didn't have availability for a few of the meetings. So it is possible, okay, for anybody who's really frustrated, it is possible to make some changes and to get different results. So I asked a number of you to send in some proposals to me so that I could review them. And I want to share with you similarities, opportunities, problems that I see with proposals all over the world. So as a venue finder, I've reviewed thousands of proposals. And in my last 5 years in working with sales teams in the hospitality industry, I've reviewed and helped them to write more winning proposals and change their proposals. And a really big common mistake that I see is that they're not personalized enough. Proposals need to be personalized in terms of using the client's name, using techniques such as writing the word you in it a lot more, because you is the word that sells the most in the English language. But most of all, we have to change our thinking in making it all about the client. Now, I know that people, when they hear this first, they say to me, but Kira, the client has asked me for a proposal. They want to know about my property. Why shouldn't I make the proposal all about, you know, myself, the property? That's a classic mistake that not just our industry makes. Most industries make this problem. And I used to make this mistake in my proposals also until I realized that I need to turn it around. So we make the proposal all about the client and what they said is most important to them, so that they can feel that this was a tailor-made proposal for them. A lot of proposals do not reflect that a conversation was had. So there's 2 areas here. when you have a conversation with a client, that needs to be obvious from reading the proposal. A lot of proposals are quotations, and they just feel like, you know, a few things were changed in the system and a generic proposal was sent out. But the other point here that I'll talk about later also is there's not enough conversations being had in this industry either, right? That there's too many people just receiving an ERFP and sending an email or a quotation, and that's it. No conversation had, and then they're wondering why they're not hearing back from the client. Okay, an awful lot of proposals really do feel generic, and recently I reviewed 10 proposals from, you know, all 5-star properties, and they too had this had these problems with them, or opportunities. I like to look at them as, because we can make changes and we can start getting different results. Okay, most important word in a proposal is you. So talk about the client more. You know, do a word check and see how many times you mention your name, your property, you know, some kind of reference to you, as opposed to a reference to the client, and turn that around. A little tweak, but it can make a difference. Because proposals should have these 3 P's, be filled with some personality, have some passion in there, and be personalized. Because if the client can't get and the emotion or feel that you or your team are passionate about your property, you know, why should they be? Why should they bother? And a lot of the time when a really generic proposal is sent, that, you know, is an emotion that the client gets. It's like, blah, you know, like this, and that's why your proposal is glanced upon and deleted, or they don't take the time to get back to you. So today I'm trying to do a mix here of, we have European and we have and we have American. So you'll notice that my spelling is a mix of European and American. Okay, so I've Z in there for our American colleagues. So Shirley here, she is director at a large conference center in Rotterdam, and they're opening another one also. And you know, they're bidding on really big business. You know, it's a few $100,000 at a time. And she made a few key changes. Now, Shirley, I worked with over the course of a few weeks in my online programs, and this isn't something that you can, you know, get right first time. I find it takes a little bit of over and back. But my point here, guys, is that it all is very possible to change around. She gets compliments about her proposals, that, you know, clients comment and call her up and thank her for the work that she put into them. And of course, she's winning a lot more business. So it does pay off. Another area that I see there's a lot of opportunity is in addressing the client's buying buttons. And what they said is very important. Now, I know a lot of the time they don't tell you this. They might send an RFP that just doesn't have enough information in it. But it's up to you as the salesperson, as the team, to be skilled enough to really be able to uncover their buying buttons and have, you know, a conversation that is that, you know, where you're leading the client and where you feel like you're in control and gently able to uncover this. And I feel also it's your role to help the client to get clarity in the event, because they might come to you and they've had a crazy day, or this just landed on their desk and they've been told, you know, by their boss or by their stakeholder, we need to have a decision on this in the next few days. Please make this priority. And so they're putting their stress on you. So sometimes it really helps for you to take control of that situation ask the right questions, have a more meaningful conversation with the client, and help give them clarity, because maybe they haven't taken those few minutes to think it through. And this is a very important stage to be doing before you actually send out a proposal. So I did a little test last year, and I asked a group of 500 sales professionals from across America and Europe if the client is sitting right beside you and you're filling out their proposal, what questions would you ask them? And out of the 500 people that I emailed, the majority of the questions that came back where they would ask for clarity on the Wi-Fi, what strength they needed. They would ask for confirmation on the setup details, what style it is the event confirmed, is the country confirmed, is our destination, one of the top being considered, whatever that may be. So my question is, if everybody is asking these same questions, how can you stand out? Now, I know that you need the answers to these questions at some stage, but they're not the kind of questions that are really going to help you to open up the conversation, stand out, and sound different so that the client does want to engage with you, does want to email you back, phone you back, whatever that might be, okay? Is the pace going okay for everybody? Yeah, just send me a little chat box there. Yeah, everything's going great. Does this make sense? If not, that's fine too. Let me know, okay? Yeah, okay. So the better quality questions you ask, the better quality answers you're going to get. And those are going to help you to write more of a winning proposal. And Justine here, she is a PCO. She has a team of 20 people herself, who I did some work with, I trained, but she said that even herself, as an experienced salesperson, as a director, as a leader in our industry, that she hadn't realized that their proposals were also quite generic, and that they really could be personalized a lot more. And she's, from the agency side also. So over to you guys. I'm asking you this. Think for a minute. Think through your proposal. What is in the first paragraph of your proposal? What is in the very first paragraph of your proposal? Can you maybe write that in the box or just bullet point what is in it? How do you start out the proposal? And I'll give you a few minutes to do that, okay? Okay, so Brian says he has the guest room block, the rate, and the package inclusions. Okay, so straight down to business, gets right to the point. Lauren, warm greetings. Thank you. I need them today. It's a little bit rainy and cold here. So, so we're excited that you're considering our property for your upcoming event. Located in the historic Princeton, New Jersey, our IACC-approved conference center and hotel offers your attendees beautiful, relaxing environment, near to the activities and attractions. Okay, it's a unique and intimate venue. It allows groups to enjoy the full attention of our experienced staff, and we're pleased to present our property to you and appreciate your consideration. Okay, good. So Amanda, so you give your list of dates, rates, and space, then overview of the package and concession. So again, straight down to business. Ollie, thanks them for the interest and description of the property. And Michelle, first line is, we're delighted to tender this proposal. Okay, great. All the kind of stuff that I've come across before. Thank you very much for sharing. Okay, so yes, this is the type of proposal that in my venue finding days I used to receive all the time. And in the last number of years in reviewing proposals and helping venues to get it right, this is the first paragraph that I come across 99%, I would say, of the time, okay? And my point here is, guys, that these paragraphs are all about you. They're all about your venue. And this isn't going to help you to win the business, because that's what everybody is sending. And I encourage you to stop sending out proposals like these, because they are losing you business. The client needs to be pulled in right at the beginning. So the very first paragraph, you have to make it about the client and what they said is most important to them. And talking all about yourself in the first paragraph is a little bit off-putting. And just to be completely honest with everybody, what the client is reading is blah, 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 blah. Okay? That might sound harsh, but I'm just being honest with you, because that's how every proposal is started. And then they just skip usually straight through to rate, and you've lost opportunity there, because now the conversation is all about rate, and that's what they're focused in on. So you must captivate them all at the beginning. And there's a great lady in the industry, and what she's a real wonderful speaker on the topic of competition. And what she says, what she said to me when I was interviewing her for my book is, Kira, it's a little bit like the first date. If somebody, if you went out on a date and they spent all their time talking about themselves, would you want to go on a second date with them, right? Probably not. And so the proposal really has to woo them a little bit, so that they'll want to have a second date with you, and you will get and earn the opportunity to have that second interaction with the client. So this is another first paragraph that I received from a 5-star property. And you tell me, what does this say to you? What is your impression that you're reading? You're reading this. Nobody from this property is on this webinar today, but so you tell me, what's your impression? What does this say to you? Okay, so Amanda, you're saying, haha, love it. Is that was to previously one, was it, when I was given feedback? Just let me know. Yes, previously, Amanda, okay. Okay, so let me tell you what I'm reading into this, and so some of you are seeing that also. So it's a lot, yes, your meetings are of high importance, as well as for your guests, that the hotel tailor makes its products and services to meet your exact needs and to make the event unique and memorable for the client, right? So to fulfill your entire expectations entirely, our team devotes their entire attention to your event, from the process of planning until the ultimate realization. So just as most people only glance at a proposal. They don't read it in detail, right? And so you have to write your proposals that that somebody can understand them from just glancing at them, from scanning them, right? You need to make them short sentences. So these sentences are way too long because they're an entire paragraphs. You need short sentences and then short paragraphs, because people are just scanning, right? You know yourself, you probably don't read documents in their entirety anymore either. We're all in a rush. So put in a full stop, an awful lot more. And the biggest thing that I noticed about this proposal is, yes, this a part here, it appears as if they want to tailor make everything and make it unique and memorable, and that they're very focused in on attention. But after that came a very blah proposal, and it was just a quotation. And I was really so let down. So the first paragraph said this, but then the rest of the proposal didn't prove that at all. And so I just didn't believe that that process was going to continue the whole way through. And the emotions, it's very important that the sales team are giving those emotions, and that communicating that message that you will be so well taken care of through the sales process, right? Because if they're not getting that at the beginning in the sales process, they're not believing that you're going to be able to deliver that through the operations department on the day. So what their experience, the emotions that you're creating now is really, really important, right? So the rest of the proposal wasn't tailor-made, so I'm not believing that they really were going to be able to deliver that kind of high-end event on the day, okay? So you must start those emotions now during the buying process, right? So, so this, you know, it was common that I saw also, but this was the end of the proposal. So you need to watch how you finish a proposal, because this is not a wow to me. This is not personalized to me. This does not say to me, oh man, these guys are going to take such great care of me. This says the opposite to me, okay, as does this. This says the ending of another proposal as well, right? So just be careful how you do that. This is the ending of another proposal. You know, it's very generic. It's not personalized in any shape or form. A lot of proposals in our industry don't also reflect expertise and your level of expertise. There's so much expertise in your team and in the operations team at IACC venues, right? You are a cut above the rest through the certification, through what your team, through what the facilities, the processes that you've gone through to earn that accreditation. And I need to see that in the proposal. It's not enough to just talk about it and say that we have this. I need you to show your expertise, how you're going to help me deliver an amazing event right throughout the proposal. And a problem that I see in our industry, and this is to a lot of our directors here and our general managers, is that we have wonderful people in the industry, but some of them just have got bored because, as Bex would say here, she was stuck in a rut of just sending out proposals. And after, you know, I'd done some work with her and her team, this is what she said. She said, I remembered what I love about my job, which is focusing on the client. And sometimes we can get so so wrapped up in, you know, getting out the next proposal and, you know, responding to the client in a quick manner and get, you know, doing all the systems, the internal systems, that this can happen to really great people in our industry. And they need to be brought back into what's the personalized side to this business, because that's why we got into it, right? Nobody got into the industry to just spend all day sitting at a computer, responding to ERFPs and not, you know, really feeling that you're servicing and being of benefit. And that, I'm afraid, is happening. I see that a lot in our industry. Of course, in a proposal, we want to make it easy for them to spend more money. And when we're in conversation with a client, are we suggesting the upgrades? Some people, I feel, just leave it to put it in the proposal, and that might be a wasted opportunity. Ideally, when we're having a conversation with a client, you should be suggesting upgrades and suggesting, you know, how you can help them even more. And then you put that in a proposal. Ideally, there shouldn't be any new information put in a proposal that hasn't already been discussed with clients. Okay. At the end of the day, planners are not afraid to spend money, but they are afraid to waste it. And building these emotions of trust and confidence throughout their process, right up to the proposal, is really important so that they don't feel that they'll be wasting their money. Okay. How we send the proposal, the final, you know, cherry on the cake and all the rest is really important also. And I'll just quickly tell you this story of when I was a venue finder, I had a client call me up and she was in a big rush. She had an event for 500 people to organize in 6 weeks' time, and she needed a 5-star property. And I asked her, or at least one that was, you know, very much on the luxury side, for this particular event. So I asked her, you know, what was really important to the event, and then I asked her also, what would drive you mad about a hotel or a venue? Is there any aspect that would drive you mad? And she didn't even need to think about this. Straight away, she said, squeaky doors, Kira. I cannot stand squeaky doors. And so I had a bit of a laugh with her about this, and I drew it out in her, because before that she was very matter of fact, and I needed this and and it was hard to, you know, kind of break through that. She softened a little bit here, and I said, oh, you know, tell me a little bit more about this. And so she told me a story of when it really upset her, because somebody kept on opening the door and her boss was speaking and it drove him mad. So I joked with her, you know, that she'd have a little can of oil in her meetings toolkit, and she's like, yeah, she says, I need one of them. So I put together my report as the venue finder to her, and then I hand delivered a little can of oil, right, with my proposal for her. So of course I won the business. She was delighted, but it showed that, you know, I really paid attention. Now, what was interesting was when, you know, as the venue finder, I put together my brief, I sent it off to the hotels and the venues, and I told them this detail, that it would drive her mad if you had squeaky doors, but nobody addressed it. Not one hotel out of 7 mentioned it in their proposal. Now, I know most people were thinking, we don't have squeaky doors, so there's no need for me to address it. But if the client, no matter how small you think something is, if the client said it's important, you need to address that in the proposal, okay? So how are we going there, Kate? Is there...
Yeah, all good. No questions coming through at the moment.
Okay. So let me ask you this, folks. This happens regularly, right? You put a lot of energy into a proposal and you don't hear back, right? They become non-responsive to your emails. So what do you find works in order to help get that conversation, get the client to re-engage with you? Okay, we have a lot of expertise on the call here. We have a lot of you know, different levels of experience. So perhaps maybe share what has helped you to re-engage the client, okay? I'll give you a minute to type that in there. We're doing okay on time. We have 15 minutes, right? Brian, pick up the phone and call. If local, you drop off some treats. Absolutely, call them. Yeah. Yeah, so we have a few call thems coming in. And then if you get their voicemail, you know, we need to think about what kind of interesting voicemail are you leaving also, because they can tend to ignore regular voicemails, which might be about, oh, I'm calling to follow up on the proposal I sent from X property, you know, call me back. What I've seen happen here, folks, in the industry is that we need to change our initial approach, because if you're finding this happens on a regular basis, we need to go back to the beginning and to the few steps that happened before the client was ready for you to send them a proposal. And I think we really need to spend time thinking about how we're approaching sales in this industry. What I've seen as a main reason why clients go unresponsive, don't get back to people, is because the initial part of the first conversation was spent speaking about your business. And I feel people in our industry, and I used to make this mistake too, because I loved my property, but I used to start selling too quickly and not really pull out of the client what was most important to them. And I just rush straight in with, oh, let me tell you about my property, right? Pause, halt, because when we're talking to the client, we really need to pull out of them what's most important to them first. And a lot of the tools in our industry, a lot of the descriptions, I know we have a question here about Cvent. A lot of the descriptions also tend to be about you and your property instead of what you really can do for the client. So remember Heather, she changed her approach. Now she was good, she was successful in sales, but 2 or 3 years ago she started working with me, she changed her approach. The industry is really changing now, and even if you're selling the same way as you did 2 and 3 years ago, you're going to start getting different results because the client is changing how they buy very, very quickly. And Heather did manage to get the rates that she wanted also, and she gave a few different options. Clients like to have options. Now, somebody there, I don't know whether it was Lauren, somebody asked, how can you present packages within the Cvent proposal? Well, in Cvent, there are 3 different places where you can personalize it and where you can free type. So I would suggest that you put it in there in those particular areas, because I know they just kind of force you to fill out certain fields, but there are 3 areas where the client, Cvent, give you opportunity for you to show a bit more of your personality, and those are the opportunities there within Cvent. I've worked with Cvent, I've worked at the back end with Cvent, and I've developed out a separate training, which I'm not doing with IACC, but it's how to work with agents and how to win more business on Cvent and how to get more conversations through Cvent and really up your win rate. So if you want more information on that, just type it in the box there to call me. Okay, so let's look at making the proposal visual, photography, that type of thing, bullet points. You want to put it in the format that they want it in, so ask them. A lot of planners will say to me, Kira, hotels or venues, they'll just send me a proposal that's sent through their system because that's convenient for them. Whereas it's not for the client. They need to generate reports from it, and so you need to send it in some format that's easy for them to manipulate. Try and keep it short. Put the extra stuff in the appendix or separate, that type of thing, and make it all about them instead of all about your business, because the proposal is not the place to start selling. And even though through some of the technology it is the first point of contact initially, really what we want to do is ultimately generate that conversation and use the proposal as a means of doing that. And when you make it a wow proposal, the client is looking for who will they give their time to. They want to have a conversation with you. And even if you use Cvent a lot, clients will say to me, we don't use Cvent so that we don't have conversations with loads of people. They want to have all of their information in one place. They want to spend less time filtering and finding venues, but they don't mean to not have a conversation with you. So it's about really earning the right to get that conversation. But you know, a really big reason why I see a lot of proposals are not won in this industry is you know, they read as if the salesperson didn't speak with the client, because a lot of the time they didn't. It might be a standard that they should, but there's a lot of, you know, again, we're in rush, and we're just sending out the proposal. So it's about allowing your team the time, the energy, and training them on how to have that conversation. You know, a lot of sales executives and sales managers will say to me, Kira, the client doesn't want us to call them, or I don't have time to call the client. But if you're spending 40 minutes, an hour, sometimes 2 hours or more, preparing a proposal, and you're not going to win it, then you've wasted that time, right? So add up all the time you spend on proposals that just don't win, and use that time for doing something you know, a little bit different, and figuring out how to do it a little bit different. And of course, client conversations are massive. When I mentor a lot of sales managers and executives, they will almost whisper this to me, Kira, I don't know what kind of conversation to have with the client once I've asked about the dates, rates, and space. And everybody is comfortable with that conversation, the dates, rates, and space. But we need to be able to move past that and really be able to take back control and lead the conversation. I had a number of hotels on my online program this morning, from Italy, from Germany, and from Dubai, and from the East Coast. And when I showed them just a few techniques, now these were people from maybe 1 year to 10 years experience, and they said, you know, I didn't realize the importance of the order even in how to ask the conversations, and how to just gently take back control and feel that you own that conversation, right? That you that you're really leading this conversation. And Antonio here, you know, he won a nice significant piece of business within weeks of just trying something different. So, you know, for those of you who think that you have to do it the same way, you don't. When we make some changes, you really do start to get different results. Okay, so strategy is great at giving us direction, but it's the right tools that's ultimately what's going to help you to get there quicker. And Brian too, he changed his conversation. He's a mature, experienced salesperson, and it helped him to get a piece of business worth 5 million over the line. So this is the crucial step that happens before sending out the proposal. And that is key to get right, because it's going to mean that you're going to have and win an awful lot more. Okay, so if we want to get different results in the industry, in our revenue, because your revenue goals went up this year, right? Most people's did not go down. They might maybe stay the same or definitely went up. But if we want to get different results, we have to do something different, something that you haven't done before. And so you've turned up to this webinar, which is wonderful. And so, you know, I want you to think about, what's your next step? What are you going to do with what you heard on the webinar today, right? Because mastering our sales skills definitely leads to real revenue growth. So I'm going to ask you to look back over your notes and think, what's your one thing, right? I'm not going to overwhelm you with asking you to do 3, 4, 5 things. What's the one thing that you took from the last 50 minutes of your life, from listening here and engaging, and that you're going to implement or do a little bit different, okay? I'll give you a few minutes to think about that, guys. Oh, Brian, I like this one. Brian said, I once mailed a card with a picture of a skeleton next to a phone and it read, I'm waiting for your call back. I like it, Brian. Okay, if anybody wants to join, you know, if they wants to speak and tell me that, that's great. If you want to unmute people, Kate, that's wonderful too. So you're live if anybody wants to speak. Holly said, Holly, you want to address what has been frustrating for them in the past in your proposal and in the conversations? Great, absolutely. So who's this? Who's joining us?
Подскажите имя, фамилия. Да, мы с вами знакомы. Так, сейчас.
Who's that speaking, Kate? Do you know?
Вы можете проходить.
I think it's one of our team from the Ukraine.
Guys from the Ukraine, we can hear you.
Шампанское, кофе и размещайте.
I think maybe unmute as well. People are writing it in the chat box, Kate, so that's okay. So Amanda said, before dates, rates, and space, include a recap first of what was addressed on the call and what was important. Okay, great. And Holly also, you know, said that she'd address what was. Feel free to, I think, did you unmute me by accident? Oh no, I'm mute.
Yeah.
If anybody has any questions, feel free to ask them. We have a few short minutes now also, so now would be your time. But we had a few questions as we were going through, so that's good.
А подскажите, пожалуйста, вашу фамилию? Середюк. Все.
So Brian is going to use the word you. I've always tried not to use the word you, but you put a different spin on it. Yeah, use their name, company. It's just so that they feel it was written for them also. Okay. There's plenty of other ways to personalize it, but that's a quick and easy one also. Okay. Have we any questions, guys? No, so we had the one about C-Vent, so I've answered that. Who asked me that earlier? Was it Lauren? So somebody from the Rizzo Center.
Rizzo team, yeah.
Yeah, okay. So did I answer that well enough for you, for the Rizzo team? Yeah, is that okay? So I know that Nancy had sent in a proposal also, but I think I addressed a lot of what I'd noticed, you know, had definite opportunities in the proposal. But a big thing, Nancy, that I saw also was that I found it a little bit confusing because, you know, you have a big conference center, and what would help me is I found I was switching between the proposal and the floor plans, and I was trying to remember what rooms were you suggesting for my event, and I was just getting a little bit frustrated, and so I think making it obvious on the floor plans as to what are the rooms that you're suggesting for me would just make it easy, and it would feel a lot more personalized. You know, there was a lot of stuff that we could do different at the beginning of the proposal. I didn't necessarily feel that there was a conversation had. And then in the middle, you were talking about the team, the ice hockey team, I think, and activities, but they just kind of seemed to be thrown in there, and I didn't see how relevant they were to the particular event. But I didn't get a sense of a flow of, you know, why you were recommending certain things and if a conversation had what was had. I loved at the end that Lynn signed it off with a photograph and very clear information as to who sent it. I think that's very important also, and I would even put that at the beginning because, you know, it would help me identify perhaps a little bit quicker with the property. But there's definitely, you know, 4 or 5 key things that you could change there that would have a big impact. Okay. So that's it for me, folks. Thank you very much for your time. I really appreciate it. I leave it over to you, Kate.
Thanks, Kira. Thanks all for joining. As I said earlier in the webinar, we will forward the slides and the session recording to you all after the webinar. Our next session is on the 27th of March with Electromedia, which is an AV webinar looking at building and technology in your services operations. So do take a look at that on our website and get yourselves and your team signed up for that. So just leaves me to say thank you for joining us. I wish you all a very pleasant day, pleasant evening, and we'll welcome you back on another webinar, hopefully in the near future. Thank you.
Yeah. Well, I forgot to say, if anybody wants to reach out to me, if anybody wants to send something on to me, if you want to have a quick conversation with me, feel free to do that and connect with me, right? Call me in the chat room or email me, whatever, okay? Thanks, guys. Bye-bye.
Thank you all.